So we'll get started. It's a great pleasure to have Mert today. I'm really happy. Mert is very experienced in e-commerce and digital transformation. I was privileged to work many times on different projects with Mert, and it's always been a pleasure. And he's been always very insightful in how to perform great content, which delivers great performance. So today will be great to learn about, what it takes to have great content and to have new ideas for you to be even more successful on e-commerce, specifically Amazon, but also all other marketplaces. So for those who come often to our webinars, you know that we always start to break the ice with a fun fact from our guests. So Mert, what is your fun fact about you?
No, thank you, Jerome, for inviting, and it's a pleasure also to be here with you. Thank you for the invite. So I've thought about this, and of course I wanted to find some fun fact which is relevant with the topic that we have today, which is content. So it brought me to this experience that I have. It brought me to my experience when I first was searching for a job the first time in my career. And I actually used a type of a content which helped me a lot to find actually my first job, which was not an ordinary way. So, and the content was in the form of text, and I posted on a job portal. And the reason I did that was my own country was in a crisis, and I was sending CVs, but no one was responding. So I had an idea, and I thought back then it was a good idea. So I prepared the text, like 3 paragraphs, which was an invite for all the HR people to send their company applications to me, so that I can pick the right company on my side. Of course, it was a fun content, like, hello, I'm 22 years old, I have no experience. I know you're not interested, but why don't you, I have this great idea, why don't you apply to me? So that I'm looking for a company with workers that have an average age of 25, so I prefer to work on a young, etc., etc. So you get the idea. So I posted on the job post, then it became viral. So, and I have my email, by the way. So I also put my email telling all the HR leaders, if you want to apply, here is my email, I'm waiting for your applications, etc. So somebody took this, copied, pasted, and sent it to his friends, and then the friends sent it to friends. So I started receiving some responses. And actually, I actually received some responses, which for some of them were negatives, and some of them were very positive, encouraging. But after 6 months, I received an official request from a company. It was a sales company, and they invited me, and they loved the approach. And at the end, I started working there. And then I had more adventures, which I can explain in another webinar. But the point is, content has a power. Content, if you are brave enough to come up with something unique, it can really go viral, and it can really generate a lot of hype.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is Mert Burian, the guy who invites big companies to maybe try to hire him. So that is who
I don't recommend anyone to apply it, but it worked for me.
That's well done. And which year was it on?
It was 2001.
2001. So Instagram was
years
not
ago.
was
No,
not live.
there
So
was
you would have become very viral at that point. So
yeah.
I think that's an awesome starting point.
It was all with emails back then. You know, anything that you see now on Instagram, on Facebook, you would receive it on emails, like the caricatures, the fun stuff, etc.
Exactly. So incredible starting point. Maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself and the e-business institute where you work in.
Okay. So I'm Mert Brian. I'm originally from Turkey. I started my career back then, like in 2002, working in this company, and then I decided that I want to do something around marketing. I joined Gillette as my first company, and I worked there as an assistant brand manager. Then there was an acquisition of P&G, acquiring Gillette. So with P&G, I worked on different brands as a marketeer on oral care category, and then hair care, and then shoulders. Then I got promoted and I was leader for the Pampers brand. And that's why we experimented a lot with content, with digital marketing, with e-commerce. Then I moved locations and I became the IMEA marketing leader for Pampers. And I moved locations. I first moved to Dubai, and then I came to Geneva and doing the same work. After that, I left P&G to join eBusiness Institute like 2 years ago. eBusiness Institute is a consultancy company working with mostly European multinational companies, helping them on their digital transformation journey, especially on sales and marketing. And I've seen some people who are joining among our clients. I saw Andy, who is one of our clients. So thank you for joining. So we kind of basically help in 3 areas: consultancy, building capabilities, and also we have an agency who help with us on content creation. And as a company, we want to be a thought leader on content, and we have some unique products designed for e-commerce and digital content.
Great, awesome. So I can confirm that the amount of experience of Met and EBI in content is quite incredible and intense. So let's get into the topic right now and into learnings. It's like, for me, we have a lot of sessions about KPIs and what's the most important KPI on Amazon and in e-commerce. And for me, the one I prefer to work on is conversion rate. And there's an immediate link between conversion rate and content. Could you elaborate a bit as a starting point? Why is content so important today? It's obvious, but maybe you've got some numbers or some perspective you can share.
Yeah, sure. I would start with the broader perspective, like before conversion rate, content, I think, plays a role at each step of the consumer journey. And why do we talk about content now? I think, like, if you compare it, like, again, 15, 20 years ago, in order to make a purchase decision, we had to be aware of the product with a TV commercial, basically. Then we would go and use that information to go to the store and buy it, which was maybe on average, we would use two touch points to decide on what product to buy, which was a very simple consumer journey. Now, when we look at it, it's quite complicated, because with the growth of the technological advancements, we have a lot of platforms that we can take that information from. We can take it we can, when we want to buy a product, we usually go to digital tools to check, and the data tell us that we actually check around 7 different platforms to gather information, offline and online. It doesn't matter, to be able to make our decision on the product that we buy. And of course, all those platforms are sources of content, sources of information, and content means a tool to communicate information, and it has different forms. As you know, we have text, you have video, you have pictures, and you have audio. So by combination of all of that, we arrive to the decision to buy something. Now, couple of maybe, then I think there is this importance of Amazon on how to influence that consumer journey. And we have some numbers in place. I think maybe across Europe, more than 40% of people who want to do a product search start on Amazon. This was not the case like a few years ago. It was Google. So you would ask why. So for you, why do people start on Amazon their product search? The answer is simple, and it's content, right? Because on Amazon, you have all the content available for each product that could help the decision making for an individual. Now, of course, when we go deeper and we go to check more information, we have more data in place to say that maybe around 90% of the people use the images to confirm that they want to buy the product, which is an important data. What else? 35% of people stop buying a product. They change their mind if they believe the content is not informative enough for them. So if you combine all those things, you will see that how important content is on conversion rate. So that's if, for example, on Amazon, of course, you have different sections, and you have the choice of, for example, putting 7 images in place. If you decide to put, you can decide to put 2, but do you know what are the chances of a product page to convert a person with 2 images? Do you know? Probably you know, but maybe the audience doesn't know. It's close to 0. I mean, in the earlier days, you had a chance, but now with this competitive environment and everyone trying to do their best to have a great consumer experience on Amazon, have a perfect product page, your competitor with a better content will be able to steal that consumer from you if you don't have the fundamentals in place. So that's why it's so important that you have the right visuals in place, right claims in place. It's clear. The product description is there. The features and benefits are there, and you kind of have one great product page to convince them to buy that product from your page. Is the importance.
Yeah, the 2 numbers I get from that is that 35%, so a big third of customers can be convinced with a better content than your like neighbor product or competitor, and that if you have only 2 pictures, you have 0% like chances to sell. And having probably the brand awareness could change that, but it's like a huge impact. If you've got only 2 pictures, you might as well not be on Amazon.
Yeah, because think about yourself like you are shopping. So when it comes to digital, there is this always disadvantage versus offline sales, right? So with offline, you know what you are going to purchase. With digital, okay, still now we are in a better place, that there is a better trust on Amazon and it's doing really well. But still, for some customers, consumers, they don't know at the end if it's the same product that they're going to get. And there are some also bad experiences that consumers still have, seeing one product and receiving something which is quite different. And then when they see a product page with maybe only 1 sentence for product description and a couple of images, for sure, they will feel this lack of trust. And they will think about it. Oh, is it a counterfeit? Or they will think about it, and they would rather see a full page with right descriptions, full images in place, so that they would convert.
So in content, you've got above the fold, so all around the product itself at the top part, and you've got what we call below the fold, which is for the ones who knows A+ content, which is lower. If we separate both, would you have a like a quick summary of best practices for both, or things you would specifically say, okay, from the above the fold? So you said the 7 pictures, is that already one? Like could we go the 2 separate?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, above the fold and below the fold are quite desktop oriented, phrases. And for everyone to understand, above the fold is when you open the page, what you see on screen is above the fold, which is above, and you scroll down and you see the rest of the information. And I think many years ago, this was important because a lot of sales were done on desktops. And that's why above the fold was really important, because it's the first thing you see on screen. But now there is another dynamic, which is a lot of sales, and maybe half of them are happening on mobile. So, and on mobile, what's above the fold? It's not the same. So if you look at your screen of your mobile phone, you will only see images first. And that's something we want to also educate our clients and all the people that we work with, that whenever you design a product page, you might make it suitable for mobile phone. And what does that mean? Before above the fold and below the fold, the first thing that your consumers will see is one product image. And then that product image is so important, they will probably make their decisions accordingly. Why is it important? Because that's the first thing that they see. And the second one is it's the first picture where they will evaluate whether it's the thing that they are searching for or not. So on this picture, and this is for me a very important learning, whenever there is a content, we as marketeers tend to do a lot of things, a lot of it. We wanted to make it serve to many objectives. We want them to build, to drive awareness, but also convert and put a claim in place, etc. But based on consumer research, the first image, the role of the first image is simple. And there are four areas that you need to be careful about. One is your what is the brand? Okay, so is it communicating brand clearly? What's the form? Like, what's the product? Okay, so is the consumer, by looking at that picture, getting what that product is in 1 second? What's the variant? So what's the form? And then what's the amount? Is it in grams and it's items? So it needs to serve to those four objectives and nothing else, right? So if you put more, then you will complicate things. You will steal from the space that, because at the end that product needs to be visible enough on your mobile screen. So this is an approach and standard developed by GS1, Global Standard and Guidelines. And we as an agency work with them to kind of really test it with consumers. And to be honest, with that area and with that small image, that's the best case application, to focus really on the product and then communicate those four things. And then you can optimize it. You can change the product a bit based on which sector you're in. Some sectors are quite open to change the packaging. So you can make the grammage bigger, maybe brand name bigger, get rid of all those small text because no one will read it. So that's kind of the approach that we follow to make sure that image is very clear.
And you're talking about the first image, right?
I'm just talking about the first image, and that's
so, guys. This webinar will take 2 days and so on. So I think it's a great insight. But two questions on that. The first one is, I believe Amazon is setting a bit the standard in terms of first picture, because they have guidelines about the white background, about the ratio and everything. You have to take that into account, right?
Exactly. And it's related again with the consumer approach, because no one wants to see not standardized visuals, right? So if you if you want to compare how does it look, you can look at the Asian e-commerce websites. They are more open to test new ideas, and they are less standardized. But you would see it's a jungle, because it's up to the brands. They have more freedom, but it definitely doesn't work on the consumer side, because you really want something standardized, especially when you have multiple products in one place. Amazon standard is clear. They just want to see one white background and just the product, because it's proven to work for the consumer to get that information. And then if he or she needs more information, then there are a lot of different areas and tools and different types of content and they can refer to.
So if I summarize, because I think it's a great insight, those 4 points you said, the first one,
the brand.
So you need to make the brand clear on,
Yes.
and we're talking about the picture. So the brand needs to appear somewhere. The second one
No,
is,
as part of the product,
yeah,
the brand name needs to be visible.
yeah,
On the
because you can't put a brand on the white background. So the brand on the product or on the packaging. The second one is to get an understanding if it's 2 bottles or 1 bottle, or correct, or and the size of the bottle. The third one,
what is it? What's the form? Like, what's the product about? Is it a toothpaste? Is it a toothbrush? Is it a laundry detergent? And then
and that needs to be shown on the product.
Ideally.
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, there is a watch out. Some form of products might not be that easy due to the shape of the package, etc. And there are exceptions. So these are the guidelines that are recommended, and you might go like stretch that guidelines a bit based on the product form because you want to make some elements priority than the others. It really depends, and I think there is a flexibility with that on Amazon as well. Like if you're not really hurting their standards a lot, then they are okay to accept those, depending on the form of your product.
Yeah, great point. And the fourth point was,
so brand, product, form, the variant, and how many, or the amount,
the amount.
the
So making
item,
that,
number of items, or gram, how many grams, etc.
I think it's a very simple and clear guideline. And if we talk about the other pictures altogether, one question on that is, for me, I remember Kevin King talking with on the presentation about product for dogs, and he was showing a brand with dogs which were like that, and then showing dogs which were super happy with a treat, and showing the difference. And like, you can have dogs, but also having people and human beings, I think is very important. But it has some complication because you need to have a photographer with models and so on. That makes things a bit complicated. What's your take on that? It's like, do you have numbers on what's the impact of that?
Yeah, so again, there are many researches done on that one, and basically you are free to, so there are around 6 images that you can use and 1 video. And what we recommend is based on a lot of research: 1 mobile hero image, then maybe 2 images where you focus on a certain benefit and you show how it's applied in real life, like real life with the use of a model, etc. And maybe 2 infographics, like where you have certain features highlighted, dramatized. Maybe if it's a toothbrush, you show the teeth and how the brush is touching it, and some visualizations explaining infographics. So usually, yeah, combination of 2, but the learning here is you need to focus on the benefits of your products, highlight them. Claims work really well. When you have a strong claim, you can dedicate 1 to a claim. But as you say, showing the product and how it is used in real life adds a lot of, movement, and makes it interesting for people to see it, how it's being used. And of course, yeah, when you have a human touch, that makes it more interesting for other people.
And for me, it seems obvious to talk about it, but in the example I was giving with a dog treat, for example, he managed to multiply the price by 4 or 5 and to make enormous margin just by showing. The others were showing like doing dull pictures or nothing. just creating a story. And it's so obvious that
Yeah,
everybody would say yes,
yeah,
but in real life, it's
yeah.
not always happening.
I think it's a great point that you're making, because we're all talking about all those performance measures and conversion, etc. But there is also another reality. Now, these pages are getting a lot of traffic. You're investing in it, and another way that these, like we've seen that like more than 40-50% of the people visit the Amazon product pages first to make a to get more information. So all those pictures, photos actually help your brand equity as well. And we will touch base about, I think, A plus content. But the idea is all those 7 photos needs to be harmonized in a way to convey your brand equity and help consumers understand your differentiation point and why they need to pick your product other than a Chinese private label. Those pictures have another role on that front as well.
Awesome. I would agree. So now, if anybody's got questions, you do put question in the Q&A section or in the chat section. We'll be going to A plus, but do put your question and we'll get to it. So if we go on and we go below the fold or A plus,
Okay.
the first thing is I know that, or we've seen that a lot of on the mobile, a lot of A plus content was coming first, right? Before the bullet points, or not before the title, of course, but before the bullet points, and actually were coming really on when you're going on your mobile, you're seeing that first. That was the first thing. Have you got information about that? And the second, what would be like also your top recommendation for A plus?
Yeah, I think I expect A plus to be more important. It's still important. I think based on Amazon data that they share, maybe they want to promote it a bit, but I don't think they would lie. It has up to 5% incremental conversion compared to a product that doesn't have an A plus page. And when we talk about A plus, we mean below the fold. When you scroll down, you have a chance to really have use of combination of videos, images, text to tell your brand story, right? And there are some brands that really use it, and this is also linked with the idea that you have an opportunity to tell all about your brand in a very visual way, focusing on your features, focusing on your benefits, etc. Now, of course, there are some tips and tricks. There is no magical way to do it, but you have some freedom to do it as much as you can. But there are some tools. I would highly recommend you use a very engaging video. I don't recommend you to use a TV commercial to put there, because we are in a different um, place in the consumer journey. The consumer already is considering your product. They are not, and TV commercials are mostly for awareness purposes. So I would suggest to have something very focused on product features. And then you have the option of using some visuals with the combination of text, really highlighting your product photos. You have the carousel opportunity where you can slide some, use some sliders. And one also important thing, now that voice search is becoming more important, people are going to use, okay, it's still in the infancy period, but A plus will be more important as voice search is becoming more and more adopted, because you will ask questions around the products, and A plus in some way gives more depth to the Amazon in terms of your product features. And so whenever there is a question to be asked on a voice to Amazon, then more knowledge and more replies can be generated thanks to your A plus information.
So I have a question about that because I think that's very relevant. I had a discussion with a very big worldwide consumer brand yesterday, and
Mhm.
they were showing me their A plus page, and it was made of big banners, which, and they were taking each module with big banners. And I said, it looks like it's a creative agency who did it. And basically it looks very nice with banners and text on it, right? So can the tools read the banners, like the text on pictures, or can they not? Because then you say, like, you've got the first thing of saying, okay, if you want to be like voice compatible, Alexa compatible, let's be clear. Does that work that way?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's actually a good tip to give everyone. First of all, we all talked about conversion, we all talked about the consumer side, but there is also the area of visibility. And to be visible, you need to use the right keywords on Amazon, and you need to know a bit about the Amazon algorithm, right? So again, it's a secret. This algorithm is secret. No one knows what the actual weight on certain elements are, but there are many studies, and we have some quite knowledge that is tested. So I think to answer your question, images play a role on your findability. You need to make sure all those images are named rightly first. So the file name, how you save it, actually contributes to your findability. So you need to make sure your keywords are actually there in the file name. Then there is this, for all images, you have this metadata, which explains what the image is about. And that also needs to be a good amount of opportunity to put keywords over there as well, metadata. And then to answer your question, would the algorithm able to read the text on banner? No. On the image itself, no. But on those image names, the metadata, yes. And also on A+, you have an option to use the text, not in the form of the design, but you can actually write it in the Amazon carousel. Those are things that help your findability, especially when it comes to voice search.
So you would say still you would recommend today to use pictures and with all the tips you've given, rather than have a mix of text, plain text, which is SEO searchable.
Yes.
So we all know A plus is not, it's assumed that A plus is not used in the algorithm for SEO, but it's used by Google, for example, for SEO.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So do you think it makes still sense to have a mix, because it looks less neat if you have a bit of text, right?
I think it's a great question, and it's always a balance of search, like SEO compatibility versus consumer, right? So if you focus too much on SEO and dump all those keywords, then you will probably be more findable, but then consumers will have difficulty understanding your text, and they will say, oh, maybe this is fake, huh? Right? Maybe, and maybe I don't get the real benefit. So it's always this kind of balance. So you want to make sure you use your keywords smartly, but on the other hand, the design should also look really consumer friendly for them. So I would say a balanced approach would be great, and use of text and images is a great recommendation.
Great. And I have another one. We're getting some questions. I'll get to them in a second. But a last one to you is, we know from Amazon themselves that the module, the A+ module, when you have a comparison table, which you can build yourself with your own product, is, for example, a great converting module. However, it's not mobile compatible in the sense that it doesn't reshape. On the mobile, you have to like scroll right and left, which is usually not the best thing, but they still say, okay, it's a great conversion kind of use. And typically what I've seen from typical creative agencies, they would not use it because they say, okay, it doesn't look very nice when I have a super banner with my product sliced into 3 banners, for example. What would be your approach? Is it a balance also of, okay, what you want to look like versus how much you want to convert? Is that the
you mean on the comparison table?
Yes. on the
So
A+ pages.
yeah, again, all those tools are free to use, and and I would highly recommend to leverage all of them. Now, comparison tools are great for any consumer to trade up, maybe, or give information regarding the other products you might have on the total portfolio. So I would highly suggest to use them on every product you have. It's an additional effort, but definitely worth converting more, trading up, explaining the maybe. I mean, we as like sometimes brand people are very familiar with our own portfolio, but it's quite complicated for any consumer to understand different benefits of each product, and why is something more expensive than the other. And if you give the right information with the right benefits on that table, then he or she might say, yes, I need those features and I'm ready to pay more. And then that comes at an additional profit to you thanks to that table.
That's a great insight. And just to be clear for everyone listening, is sometimes Amazon creates below the A+ content, they create a comparison table themselves with competitor products. And the idea is that on the A+, you can have a comparison with your own products. So you compare your product A with your product B, C, D, and you can decide on which criteria you compare them. And I agree with you, Matt. I think it's a great way to showcase your different products and upsell. So we'll jump into the questions. The first one from Antonio Mertz. With a raise of visualizations, that's not a very nice word for me. Okay, with the raise of visualizations in mobile devices, do you think that the picture gallery will have a higher impact in conversion than the A+ in the future?
Yeah, I highly agree. And when you say picture gallery, I mean, you mean the left-hand side, the six pictures. I think today they have a higher conversion rate, definitely, because I think A+ works with people who want to learn more about the product, scrolls down. But again, the first thing, a lot of consumers, we are consumers, we want to decide fast. We, in most of the cases, again, depending on the product, decide based on the first couple of images that we see. So I really agree that those visuals are extremely important. And A+ is more for catching people who are looking for more information, plus to give them the brand story, you know, the feeling of your brand, etc.
I have another question, and that's probably one for me, which is there a premium A+ option for sellers? As far as I know, it's a premium A+ is on invitation only and is for vendors, and it's quite a big price to get them to get that premium A+. And for I don't know if you want to touch a bit on premium A+, Matt, or
No, you can.
yeah. So basically, premium A+ is quite rare because it comes. If you want to see to like how it looks like, go to Amazon products like Alexa, and you will see it. Basically, it's content which goes it's wide on the whole screen. Typical normal A+ is shaped as squares basically, and if your window is bigger, you will see that it's very like strictly formatted. With premium, it goes you can see that they have much more space. They can put text on the pictures and so on, so there's more features associated to it. And for now, it's only for vendors as far as we know. What we've seen in the past, sort of options for vendors have gone to sellers, and it was very expensive for vendors, and it becomes free for sellers somewhere down the line. That's our experience. We will see. There's no information from Amazon on that side. Now, another question. Could you explain more how sound search will impact the content? I think it's a
Yes,
great question about Alexa and the impact in
Hi,
business.
Okan, by the way. So he's a friend of mine. So it's a great question, and I think it will have a massive impact once the full adoption is there. And the impact is more going to be about like when you do a search right now, you see multiple options, right? So With sound search, the biggest difference is you will only get a few recommendations. Like imagine you're asking Alexa that you want to buy a battery. Either the device will know your previous purchase, or it will ask you what kind of brand that you want to buy. But at the end, the biggest difference is the amount of options that is going to be provided by sound search will be limited. Now, what's the impact? It's going to be extremely competitive for brands to get the first one or two rankings. So a lot of more money will be spent for search optimization to appear on top. So this is for me going to be the biggest impact.
And I think it's very valuable. And as you were speaking, remember a scene I had at home where I have an Alexa, and my daughters took them in their room and they would talk, and they're sort of training and making jokes with Alexa, and and they'd say, "Ah, come, Dad," and they were sort of saying, "Alexa, what time it is?" And then Alexa answers, whispering also, "It's 8 p.m." And it's like, and they are playing with it, but it will become for them completely normal to speak to a machine. Say, okay,
Yes,
I have
yes,
no two space.
yeah,
Which one is the best? Can you buy
yeah,
me it?
yeah.
And that for me is incredible. So
No, it's. I think it's a great insight because the new generation adoption rate is much higher. So as they become consumers and they spend more, they will have more impact on those kind of algorithms, and it will help adoption much faster when they start using this because it's now part of their life. We are trying to adapt, but for them it's given. So yeah, I mean, and another insight I can share is today a lot of the rate of usage for like voice search for commerce is quite not yet developed. So it's more for play me this kind of music uh, or what's the weather like, etc. But we also expect as the adoption continues for people to start ordering online, and not only Amazon but all those other e-commerce players are designing their own skills, Alexa skills, so that they kind of allow people to do their grocery shopping with their special application to use voice search. Ocado is one of them. So they have their uh, application in place to enable ordering through voice search.
great. I know. So thanks for the insight. I know you've prepared a few. We have another question before we jump into examples. A question from Al. What metric or KPI besides sales do you generally look at to define success of optimized content? Any exceptions?
Yeah, okay. Sales is of course one of them. So if your sales is not going well, then definitely there is a problem. And then the question is it your content? Is it your pricing? Is it a competitor, etc.? So that this is one. Your search ranking is another one. So if you want to make sure you are appearing in the first page, not the 10th or 11th page, but then when you reach the first page, then you would want to be ideally in the top three. What else? Um, Anything else?
Sales, bestseller rank. Uh,
Yes, bestseller rank.
I would add probably conversion rate, like the
Yes.
number of people really buying
Yeah,
from.
conversion rate, definitely. Conversion rate is one of them. So you can have that data provided by you on Amazon. And to optimize, you can also do some A/B testing, right? So you can also, apart from KPIs, you have an option to compare two different images and see which one is working best with some tools available.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about A/B testing. Like, have you had like a lot of people talk about A/B testing and say, "Wow, that sounds like a great idea." Is
Yeah.
that very complicated to put in place? And do you have any experience to share what you believe works well and what works less well?
It's not easy. Sorry, it's not difficult, and it's quite valuable. Of course, it's an additional work when you have high number of SKUs. So I would suggest you focus really on SKUs that are really important. But I've seen cases where changing one visual actually has incremental effect of around 10 to 15%. And it's not only visuals, but also you can test the name, you can test the product description. But of course, the key rule is you only change one dynamic and compare to make sure they are like you really know what impacts the incremental effect. There are really great tools, some tools that you can easily use with a cheap option. They can give you statistical significance on which one like drives best. The only issue is it takes a bit of time to generate results and have enough sales for each one. So that's the challenge. But I heavily recommend it if the stakes are high for a certain SKU. If it's selling well and you do everything and you want to optimize more, then A/B testing is one. Or maybe if you're launching for the first time, you don't know, you don't have any consumer research, then you can use some tools to even before start selling to check the effectiveness of certain visuals.
And like, do you have names of tools which I use? I know, I think on Amazon themselves on A plus are enabling sometimes A/B testing, right? But do
Yes,
you know some of
Amazon.
the tools you could recommend?
Yeah, there is a very commonly used tool called Splitly. It's and again, I think there are three or four other tools. There is also a tool called Pickfu. So I think the difference is with Splitly, you can test it while you're selling, while with Pickfu you can even test images even without starting to sell. They are quite cheap, so they have some certain plans. Um, so yeah, those are.
And by the way, we'll put all the names we given in the follow-up email you will receive after the
Yeah,
webinar. So don't you
yeah.
worry about that. I think great insights. Thank you very much. We've got two other questions. One which I find interesting is there are a lot of advantages about Amazon A plus pages. But are there any disadvantages, like about the margin or about any costs, or is like any negatives about the A plus pages?
I mean, if you are operating with 200 SKUs, then it will take a lot of time for you to design A plus pages if you want to do it the right way. And it will take a lot of time. So I wouldn't recommend you to wait for it, but you just pick the strategic SKUs. And then you want to make sure um, those SKUs are fully there with A plus contents. So I think it makes sense to go bit selected way to optimize your budget, and also you go fast on Amazon. That's one area that I see as a negative, I might say.
Okay, makes a lot of sense in terms of, yeah, size of your catalog. Bearing in mind that with one design, you can apply your A plus
Yes,
design to multiple
yes,
pages.
yes.
Obviously, it's better to have a specific A plus page for each of your product, but sometimes the budget doesn't allow for it, or like the sales of each individual SKU
Yeah.
doesn't account for it. So I think,
Yeah, and then if there is a maybe less selling SKU and you invest a lot, maybe it's not a payout, but I highly think it contributes a lot to the conversion.
yeah. Great. Another question about, I think, GDPR, but how are the latest European privacy laws, personal data collection and storage, so GDPR,
Mhm,
is how are they changing the web and the way content is consumed?
mhm,
What should marketeers take into consideration next to be compliant,
mhm.
yet reach their audience efficiently?
Yeah, so it's a great question, but also we can talk about this, I think, topic for many hours. But Europe is leading this with the GDPR. So I think you need to be compliant, and there are very clear rules, and you need to have a kind of a governance system within your company on how you store data. Is it secure enough? Who should have an access to it? Because it's, I mean, if you have a like a personal data sitting on your hard drive in an Excel format, then it's a risky situation, right? So you need to have a process in place. You need to have some resources allocated within the company. And when it comes to content, I think um, things are changing, right? So we are moving to a new cookieless environment, and where first-party data is becoming really important. Um, so a lot of companies are investing a lot on generating that kind of information and owning it, rather than getting it through a second, getting it through a second and third party. So this is one trend. So really having the understanding of the consumer to generate what kind of content you would develop, what are they receptive, is becoming a bit more in-house rather than being sold on a marketplace. And I, another trend as in CPG is, of course, the retailers have a lot of important data because they have this e-commerce website. So, and then on the brand side, there are a lot of consumer data, and there are a lot of capabilities to actually analyze that data. So I see a lot of collaboration happening between retailers and brands to combine this data and analyze and generate insights in terms of content, in terms of what drives best conversion, etc. So this is also another thing, but I think GDPR is really important. You need to invest and put the right amount of governance in place if you are thinking about generating that kind of data and
Oh,
storing it yourself.
yeah, Matt starts to be on fire when we start talk about GDPR. For me, it's like about content, specifically on Amazon, there's no impact. Like creating great content will have no GDPR impact. Like you're not gathering any data to have great content. So on that aspect of having good A plus or above the fold, that should not impact your GDPR, like GDPR policies. We've got a few questions in 2 minutes, so we'll have to be very efficient in answering. The first one is, how relevant is a brand store on conversion rate? In my opinion, it's hard to find, and I see slight differences when it comes to ROI. So brand store conversion rate.
Yes. So again, I think brand store conversion rates specifically, you might be right. I mean, compared to product pages, the brand store in general might have a lower conversion rate because actually you need to obviously there are more choices in place, and you have some limitations on the way you need to design. So in one case, you can do a really good job on optimizing it and using better content in place, but obviously it has more layers. It's easier to channel one consumer to a product page and have a higher chance of conversion because basically the road is shorter. Now, the brand store, more than a conversion rate discussion, it has a bigger role to play, and it's all about you as a brand uh, delivering a better consumer experience and explaining your brands in better ways to the consumer is the main idea behind the brand stores. I don't know if you want to have anything to add,
No,
Jerome.
it's a great response. It's like a brand store is a branding exercise and a halo effect kind of
Yeah.
exercise. So you obviously your conversion. So it's you're going higher up in the funnel, basically in the marketing funnel.
Mm-hmm.
So the product is at the very bottom side, and your conversion rate will be the highest. The
Mm-hmm.
brand store is about, okay, selling more products. So your obviously the conversion rate will be by essence lower. However, it will grow your overall sales.
Yeah,
That's our experience,
exactly.
and that we highly recommend it. We have a last question, and that will be the closing question, which is about accounts. So that's probably one for me. Is as had anyone had the issue with Amazon? We are unable to process your brand account have unhealthy status. We require all relevant accounts across all marketplaces to have a healthy status, use, and all brand registry. So that's a bit above. So that's a different subject to content, and that's something which one of your accounts must probably is not validated, and then it will block your brand registry account. I suggest you ping us an email or a message with your email, and we'll get back to you to answer that a specific question about brand registration. You can go on ecommerce.com or just leave us your email in the chat, and we'll get back to you. So thank you very much, everyone. Matt, you were great as usual. That's no surprise here. I think there was a lot of insights about the 4 important points about the first picture, about the different things you need to take into consideration when you create your content. And I hope this will very insightful for everyone. You can contact Mert or myself. We will have contact details in the follow-up emails. And it stays to me to say good evening to everyone, or good rest of the day for people who are further around. And we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks with another great webinar. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.